Ronan, welcome to Breakthrough Brands. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, Joe. Thanks very much for the invite.
Yes, we have been trying to do this, I think, for about 2 years. Busy men we are.
Yeah, no, we have, and apologies for that, and I appreciate your patience on that front.
Tell me, are you still practicing as a barrister or have you moved beyond into more adventurous waters?
Yeah, Joe, that it seems like a bit of a past life at this stage. So about 5 years ago, I was just to take a further step back. Actually, I left the bar about 2011, and I was working in financial services roles, so in-house counsel roles, to about to 2019. Um, at that stage, Joe, I thought to myself, right, do I want to do this for the rest of my life, or am I willing to? Because I suppose I was at a stage, Joe, where I was either going to become on the sort of partner track or the director track, and I was thinking, do I want to do this? Do I have enough of love or passion or purpose for this? And the answer was no, unfortunately. So, 2019, I decided to step away from full-time legal practice, and since then, I've been trying to build a training business, transversal skills practice business. So, since then, I've sort of been straddling between legal consultancy and the transversal skills consultancy and training. Just last year, I finally said goodbye to law, and I'm thankful for the career and where it has led me, Joe. But I'm kind of focusing on, I suppose, two main things at the moment. So there's the transversal skills training, which is e-learning and in-person training, and I'm also designing an EdTech SaaS product for the training market.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, there's certain industries out there that need emotional intelligence and they may lack them. Um, um, when I was thinking about us doing this interview today, and I know that you're an author like myself, and what you want to require is about helping people be better. And there's innate and there's a required intelligence. There's knowing, there's curiosity, there's human behavior, there's human relationships. There's being self-aware, and then there's empathy. And these were the what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this interview. And I also would get it that if someone has all these qualities and bringing in tech as well, they people that have these qualities are at top of their game.
Absolutely.
So I want to put it to you, which let's draw back is empathy. And it is a skill that some people are born with, and there's other people require it, and some people need it. So let's talk about empathy, how important empathy is, Rona.
Absolutely. So, as you said, empathy is very much a superpower. In the corporate world, there's a strange view of empathy. It's, I'm not paid to empathize. People don't actually realize they're exercising it all of the time, managing teams, engaging with customers. But like, I suppose just to take a step back, there's as you know, there's a number of different versions, but to keep it fairly simple, Joe, there's two versions of empathy. There is on an emotional level, and I think people get this confused. And then there's just a purely cognitive level where you take someone else's perspective or view. You don't necessarily have to empathize with their emotional position and reflect that to them. So there's these two different levels of it. So depending on your personality type, depending on what sort of person you are, you will exercise one or both of them. Now, can you properly lead a team without empathy, i.e., without properly understanding the people and what their motivations for their behavior are? Definitely not. And that's what causes much of the stress in society and the corporate game. It's what it causes much of the conflict in within teams. It's a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding. When we understand people as a particular personality structure with their own beliefs, behaviors, and emotional patterns, it takes a lot of the emotion out of it. It's no longer personal. So we can get on with our colleagues and realize, okay, they are just human beings doing their thing and they're programmed to do so. So empathy is essential. It's essential as a leader. It's essential as a good colleague. It's essential to be really important in the midst of a team.
Yeah, and we can we I was reading somewhere that psychopaths have very little empathy. and there is a lot of, not a lot, but there would be a few psychopaths in CEO roles. And some people, when I think of empathy, and if people that don't have it, it's someone that cares more about themselves than caring about other people as well. Would I be correct in saying that?
Are you talking about a psychopath?
And just in general as well.
Um, yeah, like I don't think my perspective on this is that empathy doesn't necessarily mean that you care for everyone, and the first priority is everyone else's needs. From my perspective, empathy is you need to look after your own needs, or else you're no good to anyone. You need to protect, you need to have boundaries with people, but you can still have a very strong radar of empathy for people when you look after your own needs. It doesn't mean I'm not going to think about myself at all. I'm always thinking about others. uh, Maybe put that into a leadership perspective. A really good leader has the empathy to be able to give good direction to their team members, but give them credit for everything, and make them feel like they have achieved it completely by themselves. And that's a really good example of empathy. But just to go back, I suppose, to the original point, I don't think that empathy is just about you know, absolutely caring about everyone else to the exclusion of yourself. No, you need to look after yourself. You need to understand what you need as a personality type and as a human being, and then you're in a better position to empathize with others.
Yeah, like I'm in the sales game, for since the late 90s. And, we were always told, and when we're training, is that, have empathy, not sympathy.
Sure.
And some people can mix up, well, what's the difference? And in sales and in leadership, it's important. We've always believed, and I believe that it's important, if you are going to have some empathy and empathize with someone, you have to mean it. And we teach people to not lie, but actually go deep inside and feel of something that has happened to you in your life that you can relate to that person then as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a vital point. It has to be authentic. It can't be a ticking exercise. What about the family? What about, this sort of
To
pattern that
state the
people go.
obvious rubbish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The pattern that people go through, and human beings are intelligent. They can tell when someone's just going through the motions to get a sale, to extract whatever they need to extract. So I think that's a vital one. You need to try and practice. Having said that, if we are not a naturally, as you said, at the outset, not a naturally empathetic person, we need to practice it. And again, you said this at the outset, it's empathy is like a muscle. We need to practice it and it gets stronger. I'll give you an example of that in my own world, Joe. I started with the Samaritans about 4 years ago. Now, it wasn't with a view to improving my empathy, but it has had that effect. You're sitting there, you're forced to listen to people, not forced, but you're 3 hours each week, and you have to listen to people going through major difficulties in their lives. I definitely have noticed with myself a more empathetic Ronan emerging from it. I'm very much a work in progress, but it has proven to me, and I'm able to talk with sort of authority with my training groups, that empathy is something you can practice and become much better at. It is a muscle. It's not something that you're just naturally predisposed to, and that's it.
I'm sort of rattling around my mind, which brings up a question. And the question is where it's, you talk about also self-awareness. And as I'm thinking in my mind, I kind of went, there's one of the problems. We live in our mind, you know, and we've often say, get out of your head and into your heart. Because sometimes that chatter in your head can affect your awareness and that emotion intelligence and everything else that involves around you.
Sure.
And it's about, pulling that from your thoughts from your head and bringing it down into your, in as a feeling, from chatter to feeling. Are most people aware that, they have this chatter in their head and it's really not serving them any purpose in their business, in their leadership, that they need to actually pull it into a feeling?
Yeah, and that's a fascinating one. I think my personal opinion that is unless you have went on a sort of journey yourself of reading independently on this and understanding that, you know, to a large degree, the mind is just a stream of thoughts going into your consciousness. There's no division between what our resting consciousness is and this stream of thoughts. So is there a differentiation between those things? I don't think so. Do most people pause enough to allow themselves meditate, be quiet, walk in the forest, whatever you want to do? Do they do that often enough to get the opportunity to say, "Oh my God, there was a break in my thoughts. I realize that they're probably external things and not necessarily me." I agree with you. I don't think they do. Is it hard? Like, and put this into my own perspective. Is most of my life run by just this constant stream of thoughts? Very much so. But have I fostered enough stuff that allows me to have the odd break from it and a little bit of perspective? Yes, I have. But it's not that often, and it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I think it's people do it because it's a distraction, because they don't want to actually, look at what's really going on with themselves. I've been talking about it a lot about facing your guilt and shame, because once you face your guilt and shame, you open up to be a better person. And those guilt and shame can be small things as well.
No doubt about that. And like again, I can give a very personal example of this. When I left full-time legal practice, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. It was train people. That was kind of what I'd done as a side gig to my legal work. But there was a time when I was planning and doing effectively nothing after leaving full-time legal practice. And what came up was horrendous. Anxiety, as you said, shame, you know, lethargy, stroke depression. You think about all of these things that come up, and each day becomes a battle because all of these things that you've pushed down with activity for so long comes and hits you up the face. So to a large degree, what did I do? I dealt with it by moving again, and but I think feeling it and realizing that this stuff is down there, whether you like it or not, and yet you might be covering it up with frenetic activity all the time. It's there, and
Yeah.
it is for most of us.
And some people take to drink and others take to drugs just to, run away from themselves as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Communication skills. You can have, you know, all the tools. You can be emotional intelligent. You
Mm.
can, have the tech. You can have everything. But I think in business as well, there has to be communication skills involved as well. When you're working with clients and now that you've created your new business as well, how important or what are you seeing as you find out in your own research about the connection people have with and having to be able to communicate properly with other people?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Communication is on one level really simple. As you know, Joe, we've spoke about this before, and on another level, it's inordinately complex. So the first sort of premise that all these courses and as you know starts with is a balance between empathy and assertiveness. So the ability to be empathetic, i.e., to actively listen, to show that you're understanding the other person's perspective, but then assertiveness, and it needs to be a balanced communication. But then to go take a step below that, it's complicated that there's a massive percentage of communication is body language. So before we have said anything, like I think it's only 7% of communication is the spoken word. So we think so carefully about what we're going to say to people and prepare like crazy, but we don't bring awareness to how we are presenting what our body language is. No one brings self excuse me self-awareness to that, to think, okay, I before I even sit down in this chair, this person has judged me, and my communication will not get through the door. So what I'm always trying to do in coaching in the training is neutrality. There's all various tools of mirroring people's body language. I'm not into that. I'm into just being as neutral as possible when you're communicating and being aware that, if you're a forceful person, that's going to really intimidate people. If you're very, very sort of meek and introverted, that's going to freak people out as well. So to bring this self-awareness to your body language, And then, Joe, to bring it one step or one layer further, personality issues with as a personality type, we all listen differently. We all have different listening needs. So what we need, for someone to the way they listen to us. For example, with my personality type, I like an engaged conversation. I don't like someone sitting, very sort of placidly and saying yes quietly. That kind of frustrates me. And I'm not saying that's a positive thing. I'm just, showing that I'm self-aware with it. But with others, you're going to need to be quiet and make yourself small. And so it's complex. There's on basic tools, balance, empathy, and assertiveness. Then start thinking about your body language. But then there's all these quirks of people have all these on a personality level, really, really specific requirements for how they like to be listened to, how they like to assert themselves. So yeah, I would say it's complex. It's a complex business.
Yeah, it's read the room. In sales, as we teach people, and we teach them part of body language,
Hmm.
and teach them about mirror imaging, pausing, the breath, the eyes, all these things are very important. And one of the things which you and me go into an organization and we're teaching all these things, and
Hmm.
we might feel that we're overloading them, but what the people have to realize is that they're doing these naturally without them realizing. And all we're trying to do is make them aware, but not make them too aware that they're thinking of them that they forget what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a really vital point. And to build on that, they also sort of learn by osmosis. Like I know, Joe, one of the first times we met for a good chat, we talked a lot about the subconscious mind and how it works. And people learn and absorb things in their subconscious mind without necessarily rationalizing it, or remembering it of a course. So these things do seep in, even when there seems to be a lot of information and you like to categorize things into boxes. When you give people these things, they can step into the subconscious mind, and when they need it, then they can go into the vault and use it. For example, in a sales meeting, as you're describing.
Yeah, but it's also, as you say, people think differently. So myself, I see things in images.
Okay.
I know someone else that sees things in words, and you have to sort of be able to, when you're communicating with people, to pick up those key words of what they're saying so you can interact with them on their level as well. The other part, which I feel is really important, and I think it took me a long time to do it, and a lot of people should do, especially in leadership, is active listen. Not just hear someone, but actually listen to what they're saying. And I remember, God, back in my 30s, I read something on, and it says, next time you're at the water cooler, which in Ireland we didn't have water coolers at the time, at the water cooler, if someone is talking to you, stop, make eye contact with them, listen to them, and actively listen to them, and you will see the energy change. And I practiced that. And I went, oh my God, I can see a difference. People were more friendly, they were more interactive with us and everything as well. And I was going, oh, this is really working. But also then what I started to do is there was another part that was if people are bitching or moaning about someone in the company, don't get into that with them. Just say, look, I'm not interested. Because what that person that bitches or moans, they pick on this person, and then when they've exhausted that, then they'll pick on someone else, and then they'll get the team around them, and this is their coping mechanism. But if you just say, look, I'm not interested in that, they might try to pick on you with other people, but you're not interested. And you can see them deflating as well after a while because their power has been someone has taken their power away. What's your
No,
thoughts on that?
yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose, firstly, on active listening, I couldn't agree more. If when you're listening to someone, focus on them. And I had a really good example of it in the last role that I did as a legal consultant. I had a manager by the name of Sean Grego and a director at Citibank. incredibly busy, working probably 13, 4 hours, 14 hours per day, at a frenetic pace. But when he was meeting you, and it was always on Teams, it was a remote role. It, he wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't doing anything. He was just focused on you. And I'm sure he had 30 messages during that meeting, from and 50 emails coming in. But he was simply focused on what you had to say. And I was only a consultant on the team. I wasn't important to him. But it made you feel that you want to work for that person. I was thinking to myself, God, this is a beautiful example of all the stuff that I preach and talk about. I hope I do that myself. Because he was just remarkable at it. There was just, no matter what had happened before the meeting, he was just present and focused on you and asking you interactive questions. And I thought, Christ, this is such a good example of nearly perfect active listening. And it was so powerful for me, I have to say. Whatever sort of narcissist is in me, I felt important and cared for and supported because of it.
Yeah, because, good leaders will go onto the floor and everybody's, is valued. You could say to an organization, go and listen to the guy or speak to the guy who's sweeping the floor, because he'll probably know more what's going on than everyone up in the boardroom. So that's great leadership. That's it, that, the guy from Citibank could,
Absolutely.
show that, which, if you think about it, he showed you something that you wanted to be as well. And it's
Sure.
like that ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was thinking I better practice what I preach now.
Yeah.
And your other point about boundaries with people, I think it's an interesting one. It, I, I personally find the like of that difficult to execute. If someone is doing a little bit of negative or bitching or whatever you want to call it, um, being able to say, look, I don't think this is productive. Do you mind if we not don't talk about this? Is it a difficult conversation to have? Of course it is. But ultimately, is it for the best? I think so.
Yeah, I think it's being authentic, and it's saying, look, I'm not interested.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not interested in gossip.
sure.
Yeah, because gossip in a company is like a cancer, and it can destroy it. And, they say that, it starts from the top down. But sometimes, it's someone in there that is disgruntled or unhappy. There's things going on in their life outside of the workplace that could be affecting, but you just say, look, I'm not interested on it. Which brings up the next question I have for you, Ronan.
Sure.
Leadership and tech. Now, I'm probably have a great advantage that I love tech, and, I can learn something really quickly. Give me some piece of software, give me anything, and I can pick it up in a couple of hours. Is there a generation there that's unsure or are still in the weeds when it comes to tech?
In terms of a certain age bracket.
Age bracket and the benefits of it, what it has is a learning capacity within organizations. And the reason I asked that question, because we're looking at AI and automation at the moment as
Mm,
well. And, we're predicting that every company will have an AI agent within the next 5 years.
mm.
Like, an AI agents will be like websites in the 1990s. And a
Yeah, yeah,
website was moved from a brochure to a PDF looking block on the
yeah,
web. And still people are getting buying websites and getting
sure.
websites developed. What are we, 20 odd years, 30 years into the internet? That it's going to have that every company will have an AI agent. So do you think there is a lot of organizations who want to get into the tech and understand the AI for learning and everything, but are unsure where to go?
Yeah, from like my experience of talking about my own product is sort of instructive in this. And I've went through a validation process, whereby you go out to my own clients, training clients, and say, is this something you would buy? Are these problems that I'm trying to solve the problems that you're facing? So I went through that validation process, and of course, it turned to, what about the AI component of this? Is that not dodgy? And my reading of where the resistance is in the risk. to what are the underlying sources for this. So, for example, my own product, whether it's the practice element where someone can go in and practice negotiation with a, perfectionist, or they can practice a difficult conversation or active listening with a control-orientated individual. The the risk and the thing that companies are saying, or I suppose it's twofold. It's number one, what are the underlying sources and data for this? If you're using one of these programs like OpenAI, have you verified all of the sources, or is that even possible? And the second thing is then limiting, or the prompt engineering that's involved in it. So how can you limit this, that the machine doesn't go off piste and say to you something racist or something that would damage the reputation of the company? Or so I think there's these risks that are still not 100% dealt with. For example, with my own product, I know from speaking to Cosmotech, or the company that I'm working with, they're saying that testing is going to be the longest part of even my minimum viable product. Putting it together isn't a big thing, training on the data, but the testing element is the massive thing, because you don't want to hand it over to a customer and then it blow up in your face. So I think there's a suspicion, Joe, but I think it's well founded, if I'm honest.
Yeah, the like what we're looking at is a lot of people will rely on it to a stage that creativity will slip away. And that is the worst thing that can ever happen, that people are using a tool, and we can see it already. And the other part of it as well is you were right about, is an AI agent going to say something racist? But it also goes back to, and I think people have to be very clear and clever about this, they have to go back to the source,
Mm,
because an AI will be created on the belief system of somebody.
yes,
So that person may not like Irish people,
yes,
and they may, be developing an AI that may have something there regarding Irish people. Um, and I think we have to be very clever about how it's operated. I think it's inevitable that, when the mobile phone came out, with Steve Jobs, there was people going, "Oh my God, these things are terrible. These things are terrible." But then now, I'm sure if you ask those people, they have them.
absolutely.
Yeah, and the technology is coming. There's a survey out that 5% of big organizations are using it. 85% of them want to use it, but they don't know where to start.
Sure.
And it's going to be it's going to be a race for the top. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs over them. But those jobs will create new jobs as well. And from myself, from a leadership and a sales point of view, business is going to be won or lost really fast in this realm of this new technology that is going to be faster than the industrial age. And companies have to equip themselves to close those deals, to no longer have order takers, but these are big, large corporate deals, because if they don't, they're going to be lost very quickly. So people have to have that, emotion and intelligence. They have to be able to have those communication skills. They have to be able to see body language and everything as well. So that's why I think leadership and the develop of tech as we move through 2025 is going to be crucial for large organizations, for all organizations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I suppose from just a purely human level, you would hope that it would lessen the squeeze on human time, human beings, a sort of human collateral within the corporate game. Whether that will be the case, who knows, because we know how this game plays. It's new board of directors want to impress the shareholders. And how do you do that? You make cuts. And that's I don't think that's any great secret. That's the cycle of most corporates. So will AI assist us on taking the pressure off, the squeezing the people, the employees? I don't know. I hope so. But you don't know how that plays out.
Well, call centers, anyone who's, working in a call center and see that's their job for life. Call centers with AI agents are going to be reduced by about 45%. Like I have an AI agent on my website, and we put in the prompts, and it can talk to you, and we've set it for 3 minutes, and it can interrupt you, or will you interrupt it? It can laugh, and its job is to talk to a person. And we're looking at that and going, how many times have I rang up the bank, or how many times have I rang up, a utility company, or
Yeah,
and cried because you were on hold for 45 minutes, where
yeah, yeah.
an agent can jump on. How's it going? Let me have a look at your accounts. And that's the technology that's coming down the road. Leadership and awareness.
Mm.
Why, Ronan, did you feel this was the path that you wanted to embrace as you moved out of one career into the role that you have now?
Yeah, like I don't want to give a cliched response and say, no, I went through the trauma of having bad leaders, but it's partially true. People that didn't understand me. And like I take responsibility for this as well. I would have been a reasonably difficult person to handle, a fairly forceful character. I didn't realize that at the time. I thought, why are these people being so unfair? So I, of course, put my hands up. That's definitely a large factor. But I just don't know what it was. I go back to 2009 actually, and I was assistant trainer on a Frary Law. Frary Law were an old mediation training provider. A guy called Oliver Connolly owned them, and I was assistant mediation trainer. And there was the head trainer was a guy from England, and he started all of the courses with this. He didn't call it this, but it was an emotional intelligence piece, and he spoke about how people react in disputes. And so he had a Mr. Pointy, he had, so that was the very tense, aggravated person. Then he had the Mr. Smiley, who was the relationship person and just wanted to make friends with everyone. And then they had the withdrawn person, so the one that sits and says nothing and is very quiet and removed from the dispute. And it just hit me up the face. It was this simple framework for understanding people. And I was thinking, okay, I have a turbulent head about people. I tend to get into conflict. I tend to, as barristers often do. But it just simplified things for me. And it made me think to myself, okay, I'm okay. They're okay. We're different. And it just really hit me like a ton of bricks. And I thought, I'm fascinated by this stuff. So then it was from there, it was just a journey of looking into it and writing my book and thinking, this is what I want to talk about.
This is interesting, but yeah, yeah.
It isn't more complex than that. It was something that just hit me right in the heart. And I was thinking, my God, this makes total sense. And was chatting about law ever of major, lots of my colleagues love talking about law and cases, and I never was into it. It was a means to an end for me, if I'm honest. It never brought me any excitement or joy. But this stuff, I could talk about it. Like the conversation we had, I think we spoke for a couple of hours, and time just went by. We were just chatting about it, the first time we met. And it just excites me. I've a major passion for it, and I love it.
Yeah, the one thing that's, soft skills, and
Mm.
I don't like that word, soft skills. And it's bounced around, and I think it's more of a marketing ploy. And I even in the whole realm of consciousness and living, and even a couple of years ago, I wasn't buying into the inclusion and diversity program. And the reason why I wasn't buying into it was because I felt further down the road it wasn't going to work.
Okay.
That organizations were doing it not for embracing it, but they were ticking boxes. We've done this course and we got to do it because it's about. I always believed it was about merit. Get the person in. Doesn't matter where they're from, what they do. If they do the right job and the right job for the company, perfect. And I think we're seeing it, and I'll argue the point that in some cases it's worked, in some cases it hasn't. And I think as we move into 2025 with technology and leadership, I think there's going to be a reevaluation of how organized, how companies structure. And I was saying this back probably a year, 2 years ago, and I can see already Accenture have dropped this program already. And what is your own thoughts on that as well? I know it can be very controversial because people are going, no, but it's
On
look,
on
reality is reality.
yeah,
Yeah,
on ADI specifically, Joe.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, look, ADI is one of the things that I deliver and facilitate courses on, Joe. Like Simon Kinnock is very good on this. It's about taking other people's perspectives.
mm,
So I think if you're serious and you're honest about emotional intelligence, i.e., being empathetic or having self-awareness, it should be important to you. Now, is it a panacea? Is it going to solve everything? No, there's problems with it. What are the problems? It costs money to introduce EDI. It's going to cost companies a lot of money. Will they see that back in a short time frame? Maybe not. Maybe the compounded learning that you get from diversity will take years to filter through. The innovation that you get from EDI will take years to filter through. Um, so is it a complete win immediately for everyone? I don't think so. Is it a positive thing, taking other people's perspectives, learning from them, getting the innovation that goes along with? By all means, it is. It can't be anything but that. Um, so yeah, look, I have to say I champion EDI. I think it's very important. Do I understand the reluctance because of the cost element? Yeah, that's the commercial world we're living in. It's the corporate world. So I can really appreciate. And the other thing is, you mentioned psychopaths earlier. We have lots of people leading in the corporate game that are just below psychopathic level in terms of empathy and lacking in consequences. That their heart isn't open. They don't feel emotions, and by their heart not being open, they're not, they don't feel them. They experience them, but they don't feel them. So if your heart isn't open and you're not empathetic, ADI isn't going to matter to you. That's just the you know
yeah,
the hard truth on it.
yeah. It's for me. It's everyone is equal.
Mm.
I look at everyone as being equal, and for someone to be successful in business, they have to invest in themselves. You know, life isn't a garden of roses, and
Hmm.
you have to be equipped for what comes. And it's about look being the best that you can be, and I think that's important when it
It is.
comes to a company structure or and it's training. Look, we've taken people on and we've hired them and we've spent 5 6 months training them in and realizing after 5 6 months they weren't doing the job that we want them to do, were
Sure.
required to do. And people are the biggest cost to any organization, and
Yeah.
they're the hardest. Like we talk about systems, processes, and behaviors, and measurement. And I can sit down with you and I could map out a system, a process for you that would skyrocket your business. But if you can not find the person or be the person to adapt and use that, there's the issue. And what I'm learning through consciousness and through leadership and awareness is that it's not what happened to you today or who you are today. It's something that probably was triggered in a person and is affecting them subconsciously. Like there's a lot of leaders out there that will look at their business. There are a lot of CEOs out there that will look
Mm.
at their business and they're going, oh my God, especially in that age of 30 plus who are going to be moving into their 40s, and they're looking and going, oh my God, I have a lot here. I'm the imposter syndrome will kick in and all the other stuff, and that may be triggered from something subconsciously that happened to them when they were younger, and they're not even aware of it.
And you know what? I'd go further and say it definitely is.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd say that there's a deep rooted bias there that is not conscious and probably will never become conscious.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. It's like even ourselves. We got the business to a level, and we had all this everything. And I went, we're just. How do we get it from here to here? I said we have everything, And I looked in the mirror and I said, the issue is me. The issue is me stopping it from expanding. So then I had to go and, look at, okay, what is it? Is it fear of success? Is it fear of failure? Is it
Mm.
fear of money? Is it whatever it be? And I had to get a coach to work through that because, like I believe, like every business person, every leader, like should have, look at golf players, they take swings every day and they
Yeah.
have coaches and tennis players and everything. So I looked at it and there was that block, and that block then was lifted, and then everything just changed. So the reason I'm saying that is that I think what you're doing and building, future leaders, it's a great business. There's massive responsibility in it as well, and the right people like yourself, have to look in the mirror and go, I'm teaching people that are going to be teaching people who are going to be teaching people who are
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be teaching people. So it's
And
it's it's honorable, and there has to be a lot of ethics in it as well.
there has to be, and on that exact point, it's a really interesting one. You fall on your own sword at times as well, Joe, because you have to take a certain stand on things, and people don't agree with you. So be strong on certain things that are valuable to me. And I suppose this was part of my own. You talk about growth yourself. It's part of my own journey of not being, an everyman, a yes man. I've had to think, right, what are my values here? What am I about here? What am I, is emotional intelligence, is EDI, is different perspectives important to me? Is it where I want to bring my life? And you're not always flavor of the month with people because they want to keep a very tight rein on the culture within their, or the invisible culture within their business. So, I appreciate you saying that. And it is a difficult line to go because I said you fall on your own sword in terms of business at times.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, and you just listening there, you're saying that, there's companies can have this hidden curtain to the world, we are brilliant, but behind it, there could be someone screaming and need
Absolutely.
help. And I think everybody needs to talk. That's the real thing. Ronan, have we left anything out that you want to cover?
No, I really enjoyed this. Joe, thanks very much for having me.
I'll ask you one last question, which I ask everybody, is what did you get wrong to get right?
What did I get wrong to get right? Trying to control things all the time is definitely something I'm working on pulling back from. I think the world blossoms when you take action and go forward. You need to take action, of course, but you don't need to have a fixed view of how things are going to turn out all the time. So, stepping back from my control orientation or my control freak nature was really valuable and powerful for me, I have to say. And it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I think yeah, we have to learn how to delegate. And most people, when you get to a certain place, they don't know how to delegate. And on the other level, while I'm saying that, is thinking to say there is many people who are great at their job and they get hired to manager level and they fail. And the reason they fail is because the company haven't invested in training them as leaders. So any organization that sees someone and wants to promote them, they have to add a budget in to train that person to be a leader as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's that point is very, very important for the legal world. You have partners who are superb lawyers. In Ireland, you have lawyers as good as anywhere in the world. Um, Generally speaking, not by accident, they're always the highest billers as well, who make partner, who are bringing in the most money. Are they good people, person? I'd say 90% of them are terrible.
Yeah.
They lack empathy and they have genuinely terrible self-awareness. And I don't say that lightly. I came from that background. I know what skills are required to be a good lawyer. They don't lend themselves to being a people person.
Yeah, true. Ronan, if someone wants to explore um, some of your courses, if they want to pick up your book that you have, Where's the best place that someone can reach you?
So my website is probably a good starting point, or you can catch me on LinkedIn. Just Ronan Gallagher. You'll see my profile, or my website is www.stopbeingyourself.ie.
And that's it, folks, for another week here at Breakthrough Brands, getting it wrong to get it right. We'd like to thank our guest, Ronan, for coming on. And if you want to find out more, or want to catch more podcasts, please go to Breakthrough Brands. You'll find us on Spotify, Amazon, everywhere really, Apple, and you'll have great interviews like we had today. Until next week, take care.